And now let's embark on a visionary journey into the future of business innovation with our compelling fire chat session on harnessing Gen AI, a new era for the business innovation. Let us now explore the unprecedented opportunities and challenges that the Gen AI brings to the forefront. Our distinguished panel of experts, Mr. Ankit Bose, the head of AI nasscom, and Mr. Jaganmohan, center head of Cognizant, will delve into the transformative potential of Gen AI. Mr. Ankit currently spearheads the AI vertical of nasscom and is dedicated to empowering India by encouraging the industry to embrace AI and adopt digital technologies. And Mr. Jagan Mohan Keshavan Nair has over 25 years of experience in technology, delivery management, consulting, digital transformation, business development, practice, and capability building. Let us put our hands together and welcome our wonderful panelists, Mr. Ankit Bose and Mr. Jaganmohan, onto the stage. Thank you, sir.
Click, click, click. This one? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jagan.
I think I'm in the way, right?
It's fine.
I'll probably sit down, I'll come back in.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I think after lunch and, the session what we are having is quite complex, right? And we can start with the very basic and go till very detailed as we want to, right? As a team, right? So let me start with very basic question. How many of us have heard about generative AI or, ChatGPT? Everyone. Okay. How many of us as a user has used it, right? As a user. Okay. A lot, I think 40, 50%. How many of us as a developer have built something around that? Okay. I think quite a few. Great. Then we have a good quorum. I think we have a mix, right? So let's just try to, okay, again, very basic primer, right? The left side shows how ChatGPT was basically adopted. And within 5 days, it had 1 million users. Netflix took 3.5 years, right? That's a quantum. So with the generative AI wave and the ChatGPT getting launched, it was a massive wave which changed everything. There was a lot of fear, there was a lot of anxiety. But honestly, guys, I think more than that, as Indian, as tech sector from Indian, it's basically a huge way to increase our productivity. That's how I think we should see it. But is ChatGPT the only generative AI tool what exists? Anyone? Any answers? Yeah, Bard. So text is one, right? You have image, you have audio, you have video, all of that, right? So thank you. So let's think like how human thinks and create a sentence, right? If I give you this line, right? In the new theater, I watched a. What will be your guesses? Movie, right? Similarly, if I change a to a the, okay? Yeah, the. Then what will be your guesses? What will be it? Match, right? So what we are doing is based on the historical knowledge of data or words what we have. We are generating next token based on the context. When I say the and it's a World Cup season, it will be mostly match, right? It could be something else also, but again we'll say match. And this is nothing but a token generation, right? So what generative AI essentially in text is doing, generating token, right? That's what it is doing. It's nothing but a token generator. It doesn't have human sentiments, emotions, understanding, all of that, right? So just to give you a primer, how it thinks, how it operates. And similar tokens are used to build the image, video, audio, right? So you give it the data based on the input, you give based on text, right? The prompts. It will give you some sort of output, which is again a token, right? It could be a text format, image format, all of that. Let's move ahead, right? So I think this was basics. Let's see where does it fit in, right? So you have the whole AI and then ML, and then you have deep learning, and you have large language models, and then you have GenAI, right? So there are other techniques in deep learning than that, right? So this is how it fits in. Uh, I think we'll skip this, but again, this is something what we have to understand. So you can give text input, you can get text output, you can get image, audio, decision. You can give image output, image input, and you can get text, image, video, all of that. Right? That is something what is something possible. We'll move to this, and then we'll jump into a very interesting discussion with Jagan. So this slide shows the value curve, right? So as you go higher in the complexity, the advantages are more. So what are the four key parameters? First is infrastructure, definitely the GPU chips, which is with NVIDIA, and few others like Intel, AMD, but again, NVIDIA is number one. Second is the cloud, right? Again, most of the cloud computing players like AWS, hyperscalers, all of them are US, right? That's where it is. Second is the foundation models. Again, OpenAI, Bard, Claude, Llama 2, all of that are foundation models. You go down, then the model hub and model ops, how you deploy this, the LLM ops. That's the next complex layer. And then the last is the application layer, right? So let me ask you these questions. So this is a whole value curve. But again, how does India fare here? How are we placed? Any answers? Where are we playing in this? Any thoughts? Okay, let me give you that, right? So most of the highly complex work and advantageous work is done in US. After US in China, the first, the second. So US has 96 foundation models. China has 76. India has 0. Okay. Even countries like UAE has 1, Falcon D. Okay. Coming down model hub, again, it's mostly US or European. Coming down an application layer where we play, right? We have a say in the globe. So that's how we are faring. But again, this is still at the low end of the complexity and the low end of the advantage, right? So that's how we are playing as country. But still, we are probably number 2 in the application space. So with that, I think let me invite Jagan, and we'll have a very interesting discussion around how businesses are adopting GenAI. I gave you a view of how world is there, what is basic of generative AI. Okay. Now let's ask Jagan. Right, Jagan, in your view, how do you see businesses adopting GenAI?
Great. I think what Ankit has done is pre-trained all of you actually, right? And now all your neurons are excited. So now we will do some fine tuning, I think, right? But thanks a lot for having me here. And I think we are in a truly a new era of computing, I think, right? And many of us have been part of the PC, internet, and the mobile eras. But what we are seeing now, I think we should fundamentally understand is something much bigger and faster than any of these. I think all of us know that actually, right? And probably all of these years, machines have learned to, humans have learned the language of the machines right from assembly to the high-level programming language. And now machines are understanding our language, and they are able to perform those tasks in the natural language itself. So I think it's a great era for all of us to be, right? And this graph that you see, and essentially is the stack basically, right? Right from the infrastructure layer all the way up to the app layer. And the opportunities is there across the spectrum actually, right? And in my view, there are two things that have happened actually, right? Which is enabling this. The first is the natural language interface that we talked about, multimodal, text, video, audio, all of that. Multi-domain and multi-turn actually, right? Which is really useful. And the second one is, for the first time, we have a reasoning engine. So this is not like a database that is fact-based actually, right? So we'll have to rewire our thinking, and the enterprises that do that will be very, very successful and will have that exponential growth. And two other, I want to touch upon these two actually, right? Which is the addressable market space has expanded in two spaces. One, I would say probably three also, but one is the fundamental one right on top actually, right? Which is the infrastructure space. So NVIDIA is talking about AI factories where data comes in as input, energy is applied, and you get intelligence out. And that is not like your regular data centers actually, right? So these are data centers at AI scale working on AI models really. So that is one opportunity space that has opened up. The other one is the whole world around software on co-pilots, and co-pilots are just the beginning actually, right? So digital twins, having a conversation with a digital twin in the natural language, where business can have that conversation actually, right? So, and in terms of what we are doing, I mean, all of us are trying to learn, and we are infusing AI in every part of what we do, right? What we do for ourselves and what we do for our customers. So in what we do for ourselves, right from the basic knowledge management systems that we had, the traditional knowledge management systems, infusing AI in it, the 25 or 30 years of best practices and the knowledge that's there, we are able to now have it in our fingertips. Just like what the GitHub, if you watch the GitHub universe, Thomas Domke talks about that thing, right? The power of the entire GitHub community being available at the fingertips of every individual. So our entire organization's knowledge is also available at the fingertips of every associate actually, right? So I think it's a the start for us. And the second one is we have something called as Neuro AI, which is our delivery platform that is being used, and that is also infused and built ground up on AI principles really, right? So that's the other area in which, and then there are a few use cases that we are working on actually, right? Which are already in place. One is around the contract management, the legal side of things, the legal workflows and all of that. Video chatbots for assessments of our lateral and fresher talent. So that's the other space. So it's a mix of experimentation and some already in production, Ankit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So let me add probably a few more insights, right? So as we see, I think there are two segments, right? One segment is proactively adopting GenAI in their playground, right? And second is, putting GenAI as an exception. Now this exception, the companies who are in the second quadrant, they soon are converting to first one. That's how the industry is failing it.
Yeah.
Again,
and probably I'll add another one. And I think that I would recommend, I mean, one of the things is there is a tremendous amount of information available on the net. Sometimes you get lost, but I would recommend that all of us go through, and Gartner put out this lens through which we can view this, right? The AI radar, they called it. So they divided it into the 4 quadrants. Consultants typically do that. So one half is your everyday AI, where the focus is on productivity, and that's been the traditional AI also, right? Productivity, how do I get more, squeeze more out of it, and that's the focus. And on the other side, you have game-changing AI, where it is about new business models, new thinking, rewiring your product and services portfolio, right? So you have everyday AI on one side, game-changing AI on the other. And now if you apply the lens of what is external and what is internal to you and internal to the organization, right? So when you look at everyday AI, internal to the organization, that's your back office, that's your productivity play. So that's a good frame, I think, and on the everyday AI, everybody is going to play. If you are not playing in there, I think business is going to be extremely difficult. And the folks who are going to be really successful will be around really knowing what the difference is between the traditional computing versus AI and make that exponential change on the game-changing side.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question. What are the top 4 use cases you see companies working on? Yeah,
I mean, before I answer that, right? In fact, now we've been involved in so many of these customer conversations. Of late, the customers have said, don't come to me with use cases. Okay, because in this particular scenario, the time to demo is very short actually, right? In 45 minutes, you're able to put out a demo and customers are not interested. And use cases also, right? I mean, the art of the possible, pretty much everybody puts in there. But in my view, I'll take the example of, since most of us, I'm sure, are part of the software industry, right? Is about applying AI to ourselves. And software engineering is, again, quoting from GitHub, 55% is the productivity gain on copilots. So it's available today for all of our folks to use it. So that's the fundamental place where I would start with actually, right? Put this in the hands of your developers, put this in the hands of your associates so that they can experience it and they can gain from it and the company can gain from there, right? The second one I would say is on the marketing space also, right? So there is so much of content, campaign creation, and all of that. There's so many things happening there. And then quite a few of the legal areas also. So these are the 101 kind of things probably, right? And the other thing that we internally are doing is, Cognizant, we play at the intersection of industry domain and technology. So what comes at play there is, large language models for a particular domain, healthcare, for example, in which we are very, very strong. We are trying to figure out if there's a customizable model for LLM and how can we train for that using our data.
Great, thank you. So, next question, right? How do you see implementations happening, right? What are the steps? What are the roadblock? How do you see that?
Got it. Yeah, I think I'll start from the thing of going through the understanding process, I think, right? Knowing what AI is, the second one would be about knowing what the humans are good at versus what, even today there are a lot of the tasks which humans are good at, which may look trivial, but AI can't do it actually, right? And then to experience it also by trying out some experiments. The second one I would say is putting out some kind of AI ambition actually, right? Where do you want to play? Is it the everyday AI plus the game-changing AI? That lens to be applied. And the third one I would say is about coming up with your AI principles that are aligned to your company's values. And then the data element actually, right? Data and security are the other things. So are you AI ready from a principle standpoint? Because principles are going to be extremely important, because ethical questions, the societal questions, right? You will have to have a frame of reference for you to say that what you will do and what you will not do. Of course, data is the fuel that runs the whole thing. So is it governed well? Is it ready for consumption by some of these models and all of that? And the third one is around the safety aspects of it actually, right? So as long as these are kind of taken care, you can go and then at least experiment with it to start with.
Amazing. I think same is something what we are seeing from nasscom.
Okay.
What we are seeing is a lot of customers are starting a journey and they are in one of these. Either they are dabbling with getting the data, right? Or they are dabbling with the end output of use case, right? And then I think one thing which I want to add is the important is LLM ops, right? We all in AI world use ML ops to extent. LLM ops is a new thing I think we should all imbibe when we are implementing LLMs. Because it's not just the initial implementation. It's the life cycle of the LLM, right? You need a big feedback loop, right? So
Right. I think ML ops has been there, but I would say it's the classical AI that has been there. But now for your model training, choosing which models to use, how do you pre-train? There's so many options, and all of that is evolving, right? It's not that you have a lot of time, or it's not that there is precedence available actually, right? So it's a combination of all of those that makes it a little bit complicated and at the same time very exciting, right? Because the possibilities are limitless there.
Absolutely. Let me ask you next question, right? How do you see the workforce enablement happening, right? So GenAI is a new skill, and we have lakhs and lakhs of people who are working.
Correct.
How do you see that?
Right. And I think like the show of hands gave that, right? I think all of us have used it in personal capacity, and everybody's asking for it actually, right? Of, hey, I want to try it. In office, it is not there. And many of the companies are going through this challenge of, the security versus, data privacy, all of those actually, right? But somehow to figure out a way, maybe the lens to look at it is awareness and education for everybody, right? Doesn't matter whether they're in IT, they're in business, whichever function will benefit from it. So giving them that awareness is critical. The second one is enabling them with productivity, actually, right? Give it to them, give them the tools, give them the co-pilots, create those and make it available for them. And the third one is to build and innovate with them actually, right? So this is, at least my personal belief is that this will not work with a centralized push kind of a thing actually, right? Make it available in a safe manner, and the innovation will happen from the ground. Amazing innovation will happen, and what our CEO calls the big eyes and the small eyes actually, right? All of the small eyes will come from your teams, because they're going to be seeing this, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we have probably one language model train something else, and that creating the data for something else, and the possibilities are quite immense there.
Absolutely. I think, again, from the industry lens, what we are seeing is there are two sorts of enablement happening. One is at mass, right? To use GenAI for their own productivity. Second is for the software development group, right?
Got it.
So people are using Copilot,
Yeah.
as you said, and other open versions, which to increase their productivity, right? And then 55% is something what GitHub is saying.
Correct.
So I think phenomenal productivity increase, right? We all should adapt. Let's move to next question.
Sure, sure.
So when we are deploying all of this, right? There's a huge risk of safety, right, and security and hazards, right, using GenAI. How should anyone individually, or how should businesses take that path? Right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is the most favorite part, right? Hallucination has become such a key phrase now, I think, right? And sometimes I think that are we being too critical of the AI systems, actually, right? We always say that it is to err is human, and when AI does something similar, we are probably punishing it too much, actually, right? So maybe to hallucinate is AI, actually, right? And all of us have some experience around querying, putting in the chat GPT and getting a response. And one interesting thing that during the Onam celebrations at office, the Pookalam competition that happens, right? So we wanted to get the list of, what should be the guidelines and what should be the evaluation criteria. So I went in there and typed in what should be the evaluation criteria for Pookalam. And surprisingly, it gave me 10 points, all valid. A great first draft for me. And the 10th point was what got me really excited, actually, right? Can you guess what the 10th point was? So this is, I'm just doing regular Pookalam at office, guidelines and criteria and all of that. The 10th point was, please take care of inclusivity. As you celebrate Onam, there may be people in your company who are not aware of the cultural significance of Pookalam. Please educate them. So this may have been there in my mind, but it is explicitly called out there. So in a lot of situations, I think AI may be more, on this ethical side, but of course the dark side is definitely there.
Yeah.
And what the three things, the way to think about safety also, right, is on manipulation related. So where it is about the bias, whereas it gets itself plugged into the electioneering process and all of that, actually, right? The second thing is around the physical safety. Does it at some point get to a point where it's able to create a virus, it's able to tamper with the train signaling systems and stuff like that, right? And the third one is existential. Hey, will it take us over, actually, right? So that's and people say that we don't have to worry about it for a long time, actually, right? But the first one is where the biggest worry is, actually, right? Because it's not a technology solution. The second one at least has a technology solution to it. So I would say that, and then there is that other concept of alignment, actually, right? So you'll hear words like this in GenAI and AI, right? Alignment is something where is the machine and the machine intelligence aligned with human values? Is it acting in accordance with the human intent? So that's a big area there as well, right? And probably there are so many experts, grappling with this, and some of these conversations go back to the 70s, actually, right? And this concept called confinement. Is there a way to confine? Will it be required to confine AI so that it doesn't go out of bound, actually, right? So those are a few of the other areas as well, I think.
Great. So as NASSCOM, I think what we did was, I think when this whole wave started, early, I think Jan, we also started contemplating how can we guide industry. We worked on very specific 3-bucket approach, right? Researcher, developer, and as user. And then very, very clear normative guidance, very simple guidance, like what are the harms possible when you work as a researcher, developer, or user? And what are the obligations you have to follow,
Got it.
I think those are very basic ones we started with, and we enabled a lot of companies with that. I think that was first of its kind in Globe.
Got it.
That's one. But again, I think, as I think what I see is there are two perspectives. One is our individual. When we are using it, definitely we have to be safe about our data. We have to definitely be aware that it can hallucinate. All the answers are not right answers. Right. Deepfake, we have to be very clear. We have to announce when we are using something generative to create some image and all of that, right? And I think a law might come soon on that. But that's an individual. But when we are talking about business perspective, I think IP, liability apportionment, data protection, I think these are the top three issues
Correct,
which
correct.
companies are grappling, right?
Absolutely.
Because you use some other model, use a open model, and that's been trained with some data. It can accompany with a lawsuit
Right,
with,
right.
to you.
But the interesting thing is, right, companies are coming up with those solutions, right? I think in the OpenAI recent announcement, they are going to be taking the, law-related, I forget the word for that actually, right?
Liability.
Yeah, liability probably on anything that.
IBM is doing that.
Yeah.
OpenAI is saying that.
Correct.
IBM
So
also
those
has
solutions
started.
will come through, but the key thing is none of us have to wait for any of these
Yeah.
to happen actually, right? Regulations will come, definitely it'll happen. The way to think about it, interesting, somebody said this, right? What makes us drive really fast? What makes us really drive fast? A car or any equipment? What makes us drive fast is that the brakes are there, is that we are able to control it. So at some point, those regulations are required. There needs to be, around this topic, right? The conversation with Rishi Sunak and Elon Musk is just absolutely fascinating, and I think it's worth a watch actually, right? So some conversations around this also
I
happened.
was
there,
part
yeah.
of Safety Summit.
All right, great,
So,
great.
amazing conversations. I think
Yeah.
a lot to follow, right? So,
Correct.
great. So, from safety, I think a very basic question to you, right? As a beginner, what should our audience start with? How should they think of using it personally and in their work?
Got it. I think I go back to what Shiva also mentioned, right? Every service, in anything that you do, it is going to get impacted. It is better for us to figure out what it is and learn in the process actually, right? So, I mean, whatever work that we are doing, be it IT, be it marketing, be it any of these areas, I would say that start with that experimentation. Probably we've mentioned that multiple times actually, right? And I think, yeah, to put out those principles also in a way actually, right? And then to know the difference between, what has changed really, right? So the computing that we are all used to is very deterministic actually, right? Here it's statistical, non-deterministic. So how do you figure out how to use it? And the earlier conversation that Jay had, the first session today, right? He talked about that exponentiality, right? So sometimes we miss that. That is what we need to prepare ourselves. So I would say that, hey, get in there and don't wait for somebody else to disrupt. Try out with those small experiments and at least get few use cases out in production and learn from there, Ankit, yeah.
Great. Probably my last question, then we can open up for Q&A.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you see, India coming out of this GenAI wave, right? What are the key levers, key pillars as per you?
Yeah, I think India is in a great place in my view actually, right? Of course, we don't have those larger LLM models or the infrastructure capability there, but the highest number of developers in GitHub on AI, the second largest community is from India.
Yeah.
And the rate of that growth is also higher than any of the other countries actually, right? That means everybody is experimenting. And across the world also, right, 92% of the people developers are already playing around with that. So the way to see that probably is, the government, industry and academia, I think, right? So government, I think, has been back and forth between it should be regulate, initially said not to regulate, but I think there's some kind of regulation required, and I think government was erring more in terms of letting that innovation happen actually, right, and not to be a constraint. The industry and the other side on government is the fantastic India stack that we have actually, right? I think India stack enabled us to leapfrog multiple other technologies that we had not been invested in. So that was almost like greenfield development, which is very easy actually, right, in my view. The problem comes when you have something working, something that is running at population scale, for you to bring in that innovation, some new technology that's coming in. It'll be interesting to see how the India stack evolves in the age of AI actually, right? And then, of course, industry, I'm sure, being leaders on the software space will come out quite strong. The third one is the academia, and that's where I think all of us have a role to play actually, right? Because the engineering curriculum probably has been a little behind on it. especially on some of these math, the linear algebra that is required for us to have an understanding of this. So some amount of active involvement in the academia and the research space will be really good, I think, Ankit.
Amazing. I think let me add what government is
Yeah.
doing and what
Sure,
ecosystem is happening, right? You're right. I think there should be a very close partnership between government, academia, industry,
Yeah.
researchers, all of that, which is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Education system has to be, re-looked. So I think even NASSCOM is working with the government,
Yeah.
and we are rehashing the, education system with the lens of AI and ethics, right? How can that be included at various points? Definitely in our engineering, polytechnics, ITI, and also in the non-tech, right?
Yeah.
Because GenAI will definitely scale to masses, right? So that's how been looked out. Third, definitely government is also thinking of building a big, large GPU capacity, right? Which can be given to the researchers and the startup, right? That's the third part. Fourth, data, right? Government has a ample, a set of data which is there
it.
in various use cases, which they are ready to open up in very, specific manner. Like Bhashni is one very good classic
Yeah.
example.
Local language.
Local language, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what is happening. So I see a great future, honestly,
Absolutely.
for India with this
Correct.
wave. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And since you mentioned future, right? The future, one of the quotes that I really love is, the future is already here. It's just that it's unevenly distributed, I think, right? But what's interesting is that the distance between the future and how we are experiencing the future has come down so drastically, actually, right? So within weeks, we are able to experience the same thing that somebody across the world has it, actually, right? And it's a great opportunity. I think India has the right structure in place, the talent in place, actually, right, which is required. But it's not going to be an easy journey, actually, right?
Yeah.
And that is the good part about it, right? The tough will survive, learn, persevere, and like Jaganmohan in NVIDIA says, actually, right? They are in that business because it is tough, it is difficult, and they solve some of the hardest problems in the world, actually, right? So that's probably the lens to view it with, I think.
Great statement. I think we can open up for a few questions, one or two questions, if there are.
There's one there, I think.
Okay.
I think somebody there.
We can start with you and then we can go to him. You want to?
So we have seen the levels of AI and we have seen where India is standing. So do you see India going up to the top level, or is India going to remain as the best application provider?
Aspirationally, I think it, much higher in the, I think in every wave we have done that also, right? IT services was one. And after that, we are seeing so many of these unicorns coming in. Initially, we didn't think that it may happen. And I think the way things are coming up in the ecosystem, I wouldn't be surprised, actually, right? So I'm hoping for the best there, I think.
So if you see the value curve, right, the infra, I think it's very hard. The GPU chip, right? It will take 5 years to come to that standpoint. So that's very hard. Cloud, we have our own hyperscalers, like E2 is one, Indian hyperscaler. Okay. Then we have Yota. You have Reliance, Tata. All of thinking are building capacity on GPU cloud. That's happening there. On the LLM side, there are multiple, attempts to start building LLM, right? Multiple areas. You heard CP Gunnani saying that. There are other foundations working on that. Yesterday I met with Z. Z is building their own entertainment foundation model, right? So people are building, right? So we'll come to some space. On the fourth, the model ops or the platform side, I know a lot of startups who are working on that. Our own startup in our foundry, GenAI foundry, Portkey, they are working on that, right? Application, anyways, I think we are doing fairly well. So, but I think major part is required is a collaboration, resources, I think investment from government, industry, all of that. And definitely a major part is research, right, which we really lack. So we have to build on that. But I think we will get there. Yeah. There's one question from there.
Yeah, we'll have to pass it back, I think.
We'll come back to you. Yeah.
Hi, Jagan. Jidin here. You talked about the small eyes. That means the lens that you can impart from the employees. So I would like to know, see, we hear about many aspirational thoughts.
Yeah.
So that's what we mostly see when we see the discussions.
Correct.
I would like to know from in Cognizant,
Yeah.
okay, what may be or how you are really leveraging AI to enable people experience, and you may have seen the real ROI of that. So I would like to know maybe some 2 to 3 practices
Got
you
it.
really implemented or executed, and
Got it.
how that really added value, because that will be
Correct.
of more of a real practical use case for all
Correct.
of us also to think through. One
Right.
thing you anyway called out, that is on the JIT that you referred, where you're
Correct.
passing on to the developers.
Correct.
But specifically on a people experience standpoint, if you can touch upon
Got it.
maybe 2 to 3 practices.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
I think the first one is, of course, enabling as many people as possible on the co-pilots itself, actually, right? Tremendous. Even though GitHub talks about 55% productivity improvement there. So practically, maybe it's about 30, 35 in that range, and that's the experiment that our guys have been going through. So in the 20 to 30% improvement for sure, actually, right? So that's what folks are experiencing. The other part is what we talked about, the knowledge management side, right? So there is this, retrieval was always a problem, actually, right? There are tons of documents, there is tons of good best practices available over all these years, but querying it on search and getting it, nobody was doing it, actually, right? So now what we have done is made sure that that knowledge base that is available across the organization is available for our people at the fingertips, actually, right? So that's the other area that's there. The third one is on training itself, okay? Training where we have created some good content and material, and we are not reinventing the wheel, right? So Google has some fantastic training material, AWS has, Microsoft has, so Udemy, for example, right? We have curated and put out tracks for our employees to follow. So if you are playing a technology role, these are irrespective of the service line, right? Be it QA, quality engineering, be it development, there is a track and curated set of training that's there. The other one on the business side, on the sales side, everywhere on all the roles, there are trainings available and people are actively going through. The other thing that's happened is around Synapse is a program that we have launched, not just to train our employees, but to train the larger community at play, actually, right? In terms of what this means and what can be done. So it's mostly the enablement and using part of it is what I would say, actually, right? And then there are few workshops that we are working with, say, Google and others, where the art of the possible kind of conversation, so that the people on the ground can understand, hey, this is possible, and they can then apply it in their situation. The other one is around innovation campaigns that are running, right? So I think about 2 months ago, there was an org-wide GenAI campaign that was run. So it had certain preliminary giving an understanding of what it is, and then getting people to form teams and then come up with their ideas. And then those ideas have been curated, and that is going through the MVP cycle right now. So people are able to see the progress of how those ideas are becoming live, getting implemented right now. So, and there is also this other task force across multiple streams that are happening. And there is a GenAI hub right now across the enterprise. And everybody in the company is able to see the progress that is happening on the tracks, any of the new use cases that we have demoed to the customers or in production, right? Of course, it's all data sensitive, customer names have been removed and all of that. But all of that information, and I'm also equally amazed at the pace which our team was able to put that together and keeping it up to date. And that gets one of the highest hits right now, right? Because everybody is curious, everybody wants to know how you can use, especially when, safety, and we can't still access open, chat GPT from our office, devices yet, actually, right? So that curiosity is definitely there, I think.
Great.
Yeah, what has got implemented, what have we demoed, you sensitize the client names and all of that, and those case studies are being put out, actually, right? So folks know how it's been done also, right?
Yeah, I think we'll take last question and very short one. I'm getting signals cleared up.
Sure, I'll make it fast. Keeping the regulations apart, there are news or unconfirmed news that AGI is already achieved, and Quantum plus ASI is also on the go. So what exactly would be the change in this diaspora of generative AI when AGI is launched? Are we prepared? Are the industry looking towards leveraging that?
Right. I think I may not be the right person to answer that. I think AGA may be still a little far out. And I would say that, I'll go back to what Elon Musk said there, right? So he said, hey, imagine if you're having a genie, AGI will give you that, right? Not just with 3 wishes, but the infinite amount of wishes. So what will our life look like? So he mentions that probably we may not be required to do any work. If you choose to, we will do our work. You can choose to do work. So if work is not there, what is purpose? Right? So many, and then one fantastic thing that he mentions is that we will move from universal basic income to universal high income. I think these are, quite mind-boggling, and my neurons are still triggering there, I think, actually, right? And quite a few innovative thoughts out there. But frankly, I'm not too sure. I think the potential is exponential and drastically will change, but I don't know what it is actually.
Yeah. So just on AGI, I think, see, it's still in lab, right? And that's the reason you see a lot of hue and cry around the globe, and a lot of governments coming actively working together. ASCFT Summit was one example, where so many countries came and declared they will work together, right? EU AI is coming, okay? Similarly, US has, the president has released an executive order, right? Similarly, all other countries are working on it, right? Before it is out in the open as Gen AI, there will be a lot of guardrails which will be put in, right? So the time frame is unknown. Some companies are ahead in the game, some companies are behind. With Neuralink getting in, right? It could be even more different. So I think if it's eventually coming, only it will come with a lot of guardrail and safety. That's what I view. Yeah. Okay. With that, I think we'll end the session. Thank you for being a very patient
Thanks
audience.
a lot. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, and thanks to each one of you for showing the keen interest in harnessing the new Gen AI. Sir, may I request you to kindly accept a token of love and appreciation from our side. Let me request Mr. Ankit Bose to kindly hand over a tribute from NASCOM to Mr. Jaganmohan. And also, let me take the liberty to invite onto the stage Mr. Vijay, the founder of Cognizant Technologies, to hand over a tribute from NASCOM to Mr. Ankit Bose. Thank you so much. May I request all of you to kindly pose for a group photo? Thank you so much.